You're listening to Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. We're coming to you from the unceded traditional territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations around Vancouver, BC. I'm your host, Bernadine Fox, and this is the show that dares to change how we think about mental health. Welcome to ReThreading Madness.
When I've never been further from knowing what the hell I'm gonna do, when I can't seem to find my way under or over or through.
You're listening to ReThreading Madness on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. I'm Bernadine Fox, and I am speaking with various writers from a new book that's been available since the beginning of May through Bell Press. It's a new anthology out from Vancouver. It's called Off the Map, and it is featuring Vancouver writers with lived experience of mental health issues, which is right up our alley here at ReThreading Madness. And so I have the pleasure of talking to several of the writers from that book and find out what they wrote about, why they wrote about it, and what they're hoping happens with this book. So the first person I get to talk to is Venge Dixon. Venge, did I say your name right?
Yes, you did.
You know, we're Facebook friends, so I see your name all the time. It never occurred to me that I might not know how to say your name, but once I said it, it didn't sound like it was the right name, but Venge is the right name. So you're one of the writers in this anthology. What inspired you to write for this book?
Well, I took part in a workshop that was organized by Seema Shah and run by Betsy Warland. And there were a lot of writers from around Vancouver with experience of madness. And we were all just workshopping ideas and talking about ideas. I've been working on a comic book for some time, and it was mainly for that I was there. But eventually we came to a place where we decided to write actually stories for an anthology, and this one came to me.
It's a lovely story. Do you want to tell people what it's about?
The story is about my rush to the other side of the country to try and get away from myself, and my meeting with a cat who became a really important part of my life and kept me alive during that time period that I was there, which was about 7 years.
Did you say 17 years or 7 years?
7
years. Yeah, it would be a very old cat if it was 17 years. It's a very old cat, although there are cats that live that old. I think one of the things that people underestimate is just how much we might stay alive for a being that's in our life, whether it's a child or another person who's dependent on us or an animal, and how much impact that can have on our lives. When you think about the impact Linus had, other than staying alive, what else did he bring to your life?
He gave me a sense of just being. He was an incredibly patient person. And a great hunter, and he showed me a lot of what was around me because I was living in the country. And because I had been so inside of myself, he helped me step outside of that and look around, because he was doing that, and I was looking at him, and then I looked farther.
You were going to read a piece of your writing that is in this book. Are you able to do that now?
Yes, I'll just read the first part of the story.
Okay.
The story is called Linus. Traveling east, driving an old souped-up pickup named Amadeus. I hadn't driven for 10 years, nor had I driven anything bigger than a sedan. A blind run from defeat, shame, agony. East, and further east, because east is not west. Defeat, shame, and agony arrived a week or so after I did. Like Big Bear Bob Height said, wherever you go, there you are. I bought a 100-year-old falling down house in Murphy Cove. a small community on the Eastern Shore. I had 3 neighbors, each a half acre or more apart, from me and from one another. I knew none of them. This complemented my uncertainty. I settled in, howling into the beauty of silence, waiting for the right moment to end my life quietly, far away from family, not wanting to bequeath them the funeral arrangement. I was a brokenness squatted over by egoism and self-doubt.
Yeah, it's a
That
beautiful
sense.
passage. I love that line, howling into the beauty of silence. It evokes so much in me that I'm not even sure I could tell you what it evokes. I just know it evokes in me a sense of um, being in appreciation of the space it creates. I don't know how to say that any differently than that, but it creates a space that I really quite appreciate. Your writing is very well done, and the relationship between you and Linus it becomes very, very clear. And you're right, animals, come into our lives, and they change things if we allow them to change things, and it's very clear. How did Linus come to live with you?
He had, well, a friend of a friend told her about him, and then I was sort of pressured into taking him because they kept giving notices about him being on death row. And his person was another lesbian. I'm a lesbian, and this person was an older woman who suffered from dementia, and she could no longer take care of her cat. So she was in the hospital, and Linus was alone. And eventually, he came to me against my will, really, because I really didn't think I could take care of him. I didn't think I was up to taking care of him. But the death row thing had me.
Yes, you were contemplating suicide.
I was.
And
That's why I went there.
And Linus became a problem in your contemplation of that suicide.
That's right. Because he was a living being who had accepted responsibility for, I didn't feel I could just suddenly leave him to his own devices or to yet another person. So I stayed with him. He kept me here.
Are you happy that you're here? Or is that a hard question to
That's
answer?
a hard question. Depends on the day. Depends on the day.
Depends on the day. Yeah. No, I get that. It's true. It does depend on the day. Where's Linus now?
Linus died after we came to Vancouver. It's a really sad story, so I won't tell that because it kind of
I'm sorry.
changes the story in the book. But I'd miss him every day.
Yeah, I understand that. Our animals are very important to us. Why did you want this story to go out to people?
Well, at first I wasn't sure what to write about, and then I thought I needed another cat friend of mine had died, so I thought couldn't write about him. I'd have to write back in time to the time when I had never written about Linus, and Linus was what pulled me out of a really terrible place and allowed me to see some things that I hadn't been seeing, and just take time to sit and watch things other than myself, to get out of my own self. So I think that's why I decided to write it, because I thought, well, that's one of the things a lot of us struggle with, is being inside of ourselves so deeply, and that difficulty getting out. And animals definitely can do that for us, even if they might not be our cat, might be a bird, might be like a crow. Watching the crows can do that, or just watching nature can do that. Just to not be in myself. And I thought that would mix well with what's happening in the book, although I haven't read the other stories, and I'm really excited about reading those.
There are some really wonderful stories in this book. Yours, in my opinion, is one of the ones that I appreciate a lot. And I think probably because I have cats. My cats are important. But I also had a dog who came into my life in a in kind of the same way. I mean, I never intended to have a dog. My grandchild wanted to take this dog and fix it because it was going to die, and it was going to die. It was 8 weeks
Right.
old, and it was very sick, and it was going to die. And so we brought it home and fixed it up and tried to take it back to where it belonged, and that didn't happen. And so we ended up trying to figure out how to find a home for it. But as we were doing that, of course, every week this dog would grow like.
Yeah, and then you can't. Then you can't like
It gets harder and harder. You're going, oh, it's a cute little 8 week. Oh no, wait a minute. It's like 40 pounds now. And oh, wait a minute, it's 90 pounds. And and it absolutely loves you. I mean, it just loved me. And I mean, it was just one of the one of the great joys of my life, having this dog that just about did me in, because it was 90 pounds and really needed to run, and I have chronic fatigue and can't
right.
do that. And so he did find a home. He is happily ensconced in the Kootenay Mountains, and exactly where he needed to be. But yeah, so I understand having animals come that you didn't expect to have, and having them just literally change your life all for the better. So thank you, Venge, for coming and chatting with us about this.
Thank you very much.
And we'll be
Bye.
right back, folks.
Eoch Tanuyap, Quiget Iwans Quinsna. Hi everybody, my name is Quiget Iwans. I'm a member of the Squamish Nation and the Yagalanas clan of the Haida Nation. You're listening to Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. We live, work, play, and broadcast from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations.
You're listening to ReThreading Madness on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. I'm Bernadine Fox, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Angela Gray, who is one of the authors of a short story in the book called Off the Map. Today we are interviewing people who have been included in this publication, and Angela is one of them, and she had a very unique story written in a very unique style, and I'm very glad to be able to ask her questions about it. So welcome, Angela.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Sure. So I'm going to be picky because I do go by Angela J. Gray, and the reason I do that is because there's so many of us
Oh,
out there. Like there's just, there's so many of us. So I've just decided I'm just going to do, in Vancouver alone, there's like 4 of us. So
wow.
so I go by Angela J. Gray, not because I'm necessarily actually attached to J, because it is my middle name is named after my adopted mother, who I have a contentious relationship with. But that's my way of reclaiming. And so I am a mother, I'm a twin, I'm a friend, and I'm a writer, and I'm a creative. And I come to this work from my 20s, probably sooner, probably in my teens. I was really interested. I love to dance. It was one of the ways to move through some of the things that were happening to me. And I also loved listening to music. So I started playing guitar, and I started writing songs for my guitar. And then it turned into writing poetry about pain, really, and my experiences in a roundabout way around my adoption experience. And from there, I came out to BC and started living in Vancouver, and had enough space for my adoptive family to really think about writing about my experience. And so the writing at that time was really angry. It was angry writing, necessary for my growth and development. And then I started really researching how to be a writer, and I got into booming ground at UBC in the early 2000s. By this point, I had a 4-year-old, 5-year-old son, and I decided that I needed to focus on raising him. So I set aside writing, focused on working and raising him. And then I went back to school to study addictions counseling, actually. And when I finished that program, I decided that I needed to reconcile my own story before I went out helping other people's with theirs. And so I got back to writing and finished this memoir called A Clean House.
And is that published at this point?
I'm looking for a publisher.
Okay.
I've got, small pieces that have been published here and there. I've I've done readings publicly. I've had some really great opportunities recently in Vancouver um, with my poetry, and yeah, so I'm just looking for a publisher, and have actually started my next book as well.
Cool. Writing is such a huge thing. I know people talk about writing a book. I did write a memoir, and memoirs are one of a very naive statement coming from me, but in my opinion, very hard things to do, because if it's an issue that is, an intense issue of any kind, you really have to dig down deep in terms of finding your own honesty and being able to put it on paper. It's not an easy thing to do at all. You do have to own your crap, basically. So,
You do. It was interesting. I had somebody read my memoir recently, and one of their comments was, "Oh, do you need to put that thing in there about that?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I actually do. Like, you can't, talk about all the things that happened to you without having some accountability and responsibility for what those things did to you and
mm-hmm,
chose to do because of those things at that time."
mm-hmm. Yeah, editing. People want us to edit, but when it's your life and you want to get through your life, editing is not the thing. Censoring, I guess, is the thing I want to say. Censoring is not the way to do it. So tell us about this story you put in here. It's called It Is Ordered.
So it is ordered. It's in the story itself, I've taken my adoption order, the official adoption order, and I've cut it up, if you will, and blocked out, marked out pieces of it to include into a story about my adoption. And that, this adoption happened. It was a part of an adoption experiment that was happening in the 1960s, 70s out of Toronto, getting Black kids out of foster care into homes, and which would be primarily white homes at the time. I suspect it probably still is. Um, but it's really about this experiment. And, these projects happen, people do experiments, but they never really look at the long-term impact of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really wanted to highlight this adoption order, what was going on in the family, the home that they placed me and my twin in, and to allow the reader to surmise some of the long-term impacts of that. And the best way I thought in terms of this piece and applying to get this piece published would be through this story. So I'm talking a bit about the early days and some of the things that happened in the home. There is a trigger warning. I like to warn people about that. And it's difficult to write, but I think it's necessary to say.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I so agree that we need to talk about what is, not what we want to kind of pretend. When you call this an experiment, what was the point of the experiment?
I think just based on some of my own research, the point was to I think my feeling is it all comes down to money. So getting kids out of foster care. So Black kids were deemed as hard to adopt at that time. Languaging at that time was, Negro children getting that's what the experiment was called.
Mm.
The adoption of Negro children, a community-wide approach. And so it brought in Children's Aid Society, the Catholic Children's Aid Society, the Jewish community in Toronto to think about innovative ways to get these kids, my twin and I included, out of foster care. And so I don't think they wanted to pay for us to be there.
Right.
And we were actually taken from our mother without her consent. She was a non-landed immigrant in Toronto coming from Jamaica. Um, gave birth prematurely, didn't know she was having twins. And essentially, we were taken from that point. And our names were changed. We were put up for adoption. We were advertised across the country in a newspaper article called Today's Child.
Oh my
And,
God.
and we're lost to her until I decided to find what happened. And
Mm-hmm.
So the memoir talks all about that. But yeah, oh my God is right, that is the right reaction. And so there were many children, probably over 4,000 children that were advertised in this Today's Child article, primarily Indigenous children. And
That's
I
where I was
think,
going to go next.
yeah, primarily Indigenous children. And I think that the social experiment, the adoption of Negro children, I will say that again, was probably based on what was happening to Indigenous children at that
Mhm.
time as well.
Well, all the parameters are the same, exactly the same, including that children of color were being placed in white homes. Um, and you have to kind of, sort of wank your head around trying to figure out what could possibly they thought they were going to get out of this, other than making children not indigenous or not children of color of some kind. I don't know. My brain just wants to shut it all out, quite frankly. It's just too hard to imagine. Even your mother, just, coming here and being an immigrant, and this isn't, this is a strange place, and giving birth, and then giving birth to twins, and then having her children removed from her. That is traumatizing, hugely, hugely traumatizing. It doesn't sound like you were removed because she did anything wrong.
The only thing she did wrong was to be in the country and not landed. And
Right.
that's and so I can only imagine, I've talked to people and I stopped talking to people because I said, oh, Angela, there was laws against that. That couldn't have happened. And it's just like, why could it happen? Right? Like, why? You know, it did happen. Can we just say that it did happen? I believe my mother. I
Right.
believe my mother. And the fact that we were advertised in a newspaper article without our original birth names says a lot to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And I don't understand how people, I mean, maybe they said this couldn't happen many, many years ago, but we understand now about 60 Scoop. This is exactly what happened. It's not a question anymore. And of course, we know that the 60 Scoop is still happening. It's just not called the 60 Scoop anymore. Children are still being taken at alarming rates away from people of color, Indigenous people in particular. So, what do you hope people get from your story?
I think first, I hope that people understand that adoption isn't pretty,
Mm-hmm.
right? I've heard so many times, oh, you must be so grateful.
Mm-hmm.
Grateful for what?
Mm-hmm.
Grateful for what? So I would like there to be more of a narrative about adoption from the adoptee perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I would like for folks to feel that they can talk about the traumatic things that have happened to them and that those things aren't them. I lived with that. Like there must be something wrong with me. I must have brought this on myself. I didn't. I
Yeah.
was just there. And so I want there to be more discussion about the impact of trauma and how it shows up in our day-to-day life. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
over it by any means. I don't think I ever will be, but I live well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing the things that I enjoy. And when it comes up for me, I have tools that I can deal with it for
Right.
the most part. And if I don't, then I go and get some help. But for the most part, I'm doing okay. But it's taken me a long time. And so I want there to be some normalization around the impacts of trauma. Because you're
Mm-hmm.
right, the stigma, right?
It
So
is.
hard to come and talk about this. And then I'm thinking, why am I feeling ashamed about talking about something that happened to me? It is not my shame to carry,
No. And you're not defined by it.
right?
We are not defined by the actions of our offenders. We just aren't. And we do need to be taking that back, and not allowing ourselves to be pathologized, to not have that trauma pathologized, because what that does, in my humble opinion, is it puts the blame on the victim when the responsibility to fix it on the victim and not on the people who actually have the power to, in fact, fix the fact that people are out there hurting other people. So, um, can you read us a bit of your story?
I can, yes. Just gonna. So again, trigger warning here. I began my new life crying in a high chair in a room unfamiliar. Clara shared a story over dinner once about this time. William and I howled for the first 2 days we lived in our new home. She released an odd sort of chuckle while she described this. At dinner time, when my food was not yet finished, Clara often reflected on the past or doled out humiliations for punishments needed because of something that happened in the present. After you joined your adoptive parents, that you took a while to settle, but eventually you and your brother began eating and sleeping well. Other children in the family reacted well to your arrival, played with you and sharing their toys. They were delighted with their new sister and brother. My twin and I became members of our new family on Canada Day. We were officially adopted 3 months later. We arrived that summer before my memories were formed. I did not settle. The siblings who once eagerly shared their toys became people I secretly began to dislike. When their play became nightmare-worthy, my unraveling began. I found solace in leaning my back against a cedar tree in the backyard. Today, I seek the cedar tree in the yard where I live when the day is hard. I will stand beside it, allowing all that pains me to be taken away, absorbed into it. My existence in that house never made sense to me, and over time I began to hate the word chosen. Trees made sense to me. They never instilled pain. There was a sunspot near the lilac tree that bloomed every spring beside my parents' house. I loved sitting there. The smell of lilacs reminds me of that insignificant place that was safe. The sun took me in. I disappeared into it and dwelled in the quiet stories that occupied my mind. Sometimes, though, when I could not contain all that I could not speak, I would kill the ants that were close to me, the bugs that I could hurt. The killings caused me anguish. I will now, whenever possible, catch a bug if indoors and put it outside. My siblings were told my absence was due to a surgery. I needed my umbilical cord removed because it hadn't fallen off properly. What I had was a bacterial infection that could not be identified. I was told the doctors burned my toys and the clothing I came into the hospital with because of this. Clara and Abiathar had directed me to look out the window and wave at my siblings. They were visiting me. I cannot remember if Susan, Michael, John, Myra, or William were there, sitting on the hood of the Chevy while I looked out of my white, disinfected hospital room. As I looked down from the hospital window, I could see the bay where the boat sailed. I know Anne was there, her smile, her long hair, her arms stretched higher than the others. I still recall. Anne told me not to tell, and I didn't tell anyone about what she made me do to her. Clara just couldn't understand why I could not stop throwing up. I just kept throwing up until there was no choice but to take me to the hospital. I do not know if that was the last time. I do not know how many times it happened before. I never liked seeing Anne in that blue velour housecoat. Whenever I did, my body tensed and I instantly felt bad. Whenever she pulled me down the basement stairs while wearing that housecoat, I knew I would soon feel crummy, a shame I would not understand until much later in my life. In my grade 5 school year, Anne was away at college. I was asleep in the basement in Anne's bed, that bed, all alone, surrounded by her things. I had many night visits and nightmares that year.
I really appreciate that you're talking about a female perpetrator. It's something we do not talk enough about in this society, and so thank you for that. It is something that we need to talk about more because people are being hurt just in the way that you talked about this. So the book that you're in is called Off the Map. It's the Vancouver Writers with Lived Experience of Mental Health Issues. It's published by Bell. It's edited by Betsy Warland, Seema Shah, and Kate Bird. So thank you very much, Angela, for sharing not only your story, but also your writing with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that very much.
You're welcome. And we'll be right back, folks.
Oh, you hear this? A lot of people call this rock and roll. Swings. This is done with the, let's see, with the left hand, yeah. And the right hand fits in with something like this here. Here we go now.
Yeah, it's called rock and roll, and you can hear all about it on Rock Talk. Discover the hidden but enchanting side of the music. Friday mornings at 9 o'clock.
Oh, if that isn't enchanting, nothing is. Go ahead, kids. Dance. Go crazy.
You're listening to ReThreading Madness on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. I'm Bernadine Fox. ReThreading Madness is coming up to its 6th anniversary of being on air. We produce and air each week out of CFRO 100.5 FM on the unceded traditional territory of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations around Vancouver, BC. RTM was one of the first radio programs to focus on mental health issues here in Canada, in an area swamped with statements from therapists rooted in colonial ideas about mental health and trained in the DSM. RTM works to ensure that the voices of those with lived experience have agency and opportunity to define who they are and what is true for them. Who listens to us? Beyond those with lived experience, our audience includes their friends and partners, along with therapists, counselors, and students of psychology. Since 2022, all of our programs have been uploaded to the Mental Health Radio Network and can be downloaded from all podcast platforms. So if this show was of interest to you, you might find the rest of our programs informative as well. You can find them by searching for ReThreading Madness wherever you listen to your podcasts. You're listening to ReThreading Madness on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. I'm Bernadine Fox, and today I'm speaking with Mary O'Toole, who is another author who was a part of the anthology Off the Map. Mary, we've known each other for...
2007, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I was going to say almost 20 years, and that is
Correct,
accurate. Yeah. And we met through the Gallery Haché, which you did a lot of volunteering and work for. So you wrote a piece that is a part of this anthology. It's called On Xanadu, Everything Was Beautiful. Can you tell me about the story you wrote?
Because there's a planet that I thought existed when I was younger. And it was sort of like a very beautiful planet that everybody got along with. No wars, no starvation. Everything was just gorgeous. And I sort of contrasted it with Earth in my mind. And I made Earth look even worse than it actually was.
So you had Xanadu, that was great, and Earth, that was horrible.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. And where did the idea for Xanadu come from?
I don't know. I was about 25 years old. It was 1975 when I had a psychotic thought that there was another planet out there, and that my real biological parents came from that planet. So it sort of, a myth in my mind, it sort of built on itself over the years. So
can you describe Xanadu?
Well, the way I remembered it, it was a very large planet. But everything was just perfect.
So when you say perfect, though, what does that mean? Like, perfect for me might be very different than perfect for you.
According to me, I thought the people on Xanadu lived forever. There were no wars, no starvation, no crime, no nothing. It was just a really good planet.
That sounds like a lovely place to be.
Yeah, it was. Until I realized it didn't exist.
That must have been kind of devastating to know it didn't exist.
Pardon?
Was it devastating to know that it didn't exist?
That it didn't exist?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, sort of.
How did you know it didn't exist?
Pardon?
How do you know that it didn't exist?
Oh, I'm pretty sure it was psychotic.
Okay, so then let's go to psychotic. What does that mean? How do you define that?
It wasn't real. It didn't exist. It was just a figment of my imagination.
But there are people who have imagination all the time, right? Like I imagine all kinds of things. What's the difference between somebody imagining something and doing something very clear and somebody who's psychotic, though?
Oh, gosh. The difference...
For you?
Yeah. Can't really explain it. It's hard to explain, but it was psychotic thinking. It was an imagination. I could have thought maybe there is a planet that existed like that. But the chances are maybe not. But, and if there was, I really would have no knowledge of it. So.
Right.
As I said, it was just, what's called psychotic insight.
Psychotic insight?
Yeah.
That's what the doctors called it? Or?
Is puzzling you about your delusions. And you come to some psychotic insight that explains. It.
So you have schizophrenia, is that right?
Right.
You have schizophrenia? Is that
I did.
You did. Okay.
Yeah.
So what does that mean you did?
I got no more delusional thinking. And the negative symptoms like depression and anxiety have mostly gone away.
Wow.
So it was back in 1999.
And did they go away because you're on medication?
Yes, they did. They put me on a new medication.
Sorry, say that again?
They put me on a new medication called colonization.
Colonization?
Yeah. It's one of the second generation psychotic drugs.
So it's an antipsychotic. Is
Yeah,
that
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And that just took away the planet?
Everything, yeah.
That seems very sad, honestly. I mean, this world can be kind of rough to be in.
Well, the way I remembered it, I was so happy to be sane. I didn't really care too much, I think.
Right. Well, that's cool. I mean, I don't always hear stories about how an antipsychotic has helped somebody, so I'm really grateful that it helped you and that it's had such a positive impact on your life.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, I had really quite a good psychiatrist. She retired in, I think, 2012. So, I don't know where she is now.
Retired.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this story is it's in Off the Map. What was it like to have this process of writing? Because I don't think you are a writer per se.
Actually, I wrote that back in 2010.
You wrote this in 2010?
The rough draft for it.
Oh, okay, cool.
The draft that I submitted to Off the Map editors, I wrote in 2010. And I think I published it in a little magazine from Coast, maybe, or in a nutshell, one of those little magazines they have.
Right.
And so when I read about this anthology and people asking for a contribution, but only select one.
Right.
So I picked out that piece, a forgotten poem, and sent it to them.
So there is a poem in here, as part of it. So is that the poem you're talking about?
The what?
When you said the forgotten poem, is this the poem you're talking about?
A forgotten poem, yeah, I read a poem.
Okay.
That was it.
So you submitted your piece, and then what happened?
They accepted it, and then the copywriter, or the copy editor, got it and went with it and made some changes, all of which I approved, so.
You were okay with the changes that they
yeah.
made? Sometimes editors make changes, and you're going, that's not quite
I
what I
sort
mean.
of trusted their discretion.
That's good. So what do you hope people will get out of this short
Some
story?
understanding of what schizophrenia is like to have.
Yes, and I can see that. So, and I'm going to read a portion of this for folks. It's actually a very short one, so I might be able to read the whole thing.
You could if you want to.
Okay. And so what you're hoping is that people get a sense of what it's like to have schizophrenia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, it can be quite painful to have schizophrenia. Like the two minds. One mind, there was this gorgeous planet. In the other mind, there was just Earth, you know.
It was what?
In one mind, there was this planet, and in another mind, there was just Earth. And they sort of argue back and forth.
Wow.
In my brain. It was very hard mentally, yeah.
So when you got on, sorry, dumb question. When you got onto the medication, did Xanadu just disappear and you're left? Were you left with this planet that you didn't like, or were you able? Was the negative part about the planet part of the delusion?
No, I think I was so happy to be sane after about 30 years.
Right.
Yeah. Like I think I'll probably look back on it a bit, thinking everything was very nice with it. But I don't know. Heck, when that planet disappeared.
And what was it like to have schizophrenia in amongst society?
Very difficult.
Yeah?
Very, very difficult.
Can you explain a little bit about that?
It's harder to work. It's harder to go to school. It's harder to be socialized. It's harder in lots of ways.
So did you experience stigma, or was it just that you
yeah.
were living a life, an internal life that other people couldn't relate
Yeah.
to? Yeah. Or probably both.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when did your schizophrenia start?
When I was 20 years old. But I wasn't hospitalized until I was 21.
Okay.
There was sort of like about 6 months before I went crazy and then checked into a hospital. So.
Right. Right. And was that experience okay for you?
Oh gosh, no, it was horrible.
No, hey.
It was 1971. And I was very seriously depressed.
Right.
And then they ended up giving me ECT treatments.
Did you recover from the ECT treatment?
Oh yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
okay, that's good.
My mood got a bit lighter,
Your mood got lighter. Did it affect your memory? Or?
Not that I can really tell.
Okay.
No.
All right, that's good. But again, you can't remember what you can't remember, so you're not going to know whether or not you don't remember it, right? That's kind of how memory goes. So, okay. Well, thank you, Mary, for chatting with me. And with your permission, I will read the story for people.
Okay, do that, yeah.
Okay, and we'll be right back, folks.
East Side Story on Co-op Radio 100.5 FM. Listen and reason with Aisha every second Monday from 4 to 5 p.m. Lend your ears and thoughts on topics such as humanitarian issues, social justice, activism on homelessness, poverty, injustice, here at home in Canada and around the globe. East Side Story comes to you every second Monday from 4 to 5 p.m. on Co-op Radio 100.5 FM.
As promised, here is Mary Phyllis O'Toole's short story called On Xanadu, Everything Was Beautiful. December 28, 2009, Vancouver, BC. A few days before the new decade began, I decided to go through, sort, and organize my small apartment, a symbolic out with the old and in with the new. I began with the chest of drawers that held my handicrafts and handicraft supplies. As I removed the shelf paper and shook the drawer to remove dust, a few pages flew out from between the shelf lining and the bottom of the drawer. Thinking it was just a handicraft to-do list, I was about to throw it out, but took a quick glance at the top sheet of paper. It read, "Kill me, please." After the shock of reading the title, I realized that it was a poem I had written late in 1977 or early 1978, over 30 years before. At the time I wrote the poem, I suffered from schizophrenia, which made it difficult for me to tell what was real and what was not. In my mind at the time, there was two worlds, the real world that everybody experienced, and the insane world known only to me. Both of my minds were constantly battling for supremacy, debating with each other about what was real and what was not. The first verse of the poem reads, "Kill me, please." I see visions of a beautiful white palace and little children playing by a sparkly fountain and a lover to take me in his arms. Back then, in my insane world, there existed a planet called Xanadu. In Xanadu, there was a beautiful white palace with sparkling fountains and children playing by it and a potential suitor nearby. On Earth, there were slums, children starving, a lack of clean water, and no boyfriend. Xanadu was one planet, one country, and no wars, while Earth had many countries and many wars. The second verse of the poem goes on to say, "These visions are gossamer, glistening webs in my mind, taunting me while I live my non-existent drudge of a day. Every night I do the books of the hotel. Every day I sleep while people laugh and play. Each night I awaken only to add the figures again, while the glistening visions dance in my head. Around the time I wrote the poem, I was a night auditor in a hotel, working the graveyard shift. My job was to count the cash in each register at the end of the day, which was supposed to equal the total of receipts from the restaurant and hotel rooms, and then record it. The same cash reconciliation was repeated every night. The third verse reads, I cannot take the bottle of pills to smash those visions. I can only struggle through the nights and days while those visions taunt and torture. I can kill myself so easily. It is those visions I cannot kill. So kill me, please. The clash of the two minds. In one part of my mind, I believed both Xanadu and Earth existed, and the other part knew only Earth. The vision of a beautiful planet where I someday may go contrasted with the reality of Earth and created a constant turmoil in my mind. The thought that Xanadu existed made life on Earth less palatable, less livable. Perhaps the best way to understand that clash in my mind is the following analogy. A mother whose child has been missing for years, believes in one part of her mind her child will someday walk through the door, while in the next minute she imagines her child's mutilated body lying in the woods. The contrast in her mind is terrible, and she desperately needs closure. She needs to know one way or the other what is real and what is not. And so it is with me. I needed to know one way or the other. Was Xanadu real or imaginary? A few years later, I got the answer I'd been searching for. My perfect planet was an illusion. 3.5 years after I wrote the poem, I would be involuntarily committed to a psychiatric ward, and the planet of Xanadu would vanish into thin air. In 1999, I was put on a new antipsychotic drug, and the positive symptoms, such as delusions, hallucinations, and thought disorder, disappeared. Over the next decade, the negative symptoms of schizophrenia, such as apathy and social withdrawal, gradually faded away.
100.5 means non-commercial, listener-powered community radio. 100.5 means music, public affairs,
I have a dream,
and arts programming.
I wish I loved the human race. I wish I loved its city face.
You won't find anywhere else on the radio dial. 100.5 is not owned by a huge corporation. We are owned and operated by people like you, by your community. 100.5 CFRO Vancouver Cooperative Radio. Find our complete program schedule at coopradio.org.
You're listening to ReThreading Madness on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. I'm Bernadine Fox, and now we are going to do something a bit unusual. This song, Ren's song, is not a part of Off the Map, but it belongs here with these other artists talking about mental health. I will warn folks that there are some swear words in this song, and I debated about whether or not to bleep them out or cut the song up and only present a portion here on air, and I decided against that for one reason. Ren is an artist. His song is his art, and it would be, in my opinion, morally wrong to change a person's art. And then I thought of not including it altogether. But I realize that my listeners are all adults who can decide for themselves if they are okay in this day and age hearing a swear word or not. And if not, then I would invite you to stop listening for the next 10 minutes. This is Hi Ren by Ren.
miss me? You thought you buried me, didn't you? Risky. Cause I always come back. Deep down you know that. Deep down you know I'm always in periphery. Ren, on your pleased to see me. It's been weeks since we spoke, bro. I know you need me. You're the sheep, I'm the shepherd. Not your place to lead me. Not your place to be biting off the hand that feeds me. Hi, Ren. I've been taking some time to be distant. I've been taking some time to be still. I've been taking some time to be by myself since my therapist told me I'm ill. And I've been making some progress lately, and I've learned some new coping skills. So I haven't really needed you much, man. I think we need to just step back and chill. Ren, you sound more insane than I do. You think that those doctors are really there to guide you? Been through this a million times. Your civilian mind is so perfect to always being lied to. Okay, take another pill, boy. Drown yourself in the sound of white noise. Follow this 10-step program, rejoice. All your problems will be gone. Fucking dumb boy. Nah, mate, this time is different, man. Trust me. I feel like things might be falling in place. And my music's been kinda doing bits too. Like I actually might do something great. And when I'm gone, maybe I'll be remembered for doing something special with myself. That's why I don't think that we should talk, man. Cause when you're with me, it never seems to help. You think that you can amputate me? I am you, you are me, you are I am we are one. Split in two, that makes one. So you see, you gotta kill you if you wanna kill me. I'm not leftover dinner, I'm not scraps on the side. Oh, your music is thriving, delusional guy. Where's your top 10 hit? Where's your interview with Oprah? Where are your Grammys, Ren? Nowhere. Yeah, but my music's not commercial like that. I never chase numbers, statistics or stats. I never write hooks for the radio, they never even play me, so why would I concern myself with that? But my music is really connecting, and the people who find it respect it. And for me that's enough, cause this life's been tough, so it gives me a purpose I can rest in. Man, you sound so pretentious. Ren, your music is so self-centered. No one wants to hear another song about how much you hate yourself. Trust me. You should be so lucky, having me inside you to guide you, remind you to manage expectations, provide you perspective. That thing you neglected, I get it. You wanna be a big deal, next Jimi Hendrix, forget it. Man, it's not like that. Man, it's just like that. I'm inside you, you twat. No, it's not, man, you're wrong. When I write, I belong. Let me break the fourth wall by acknowledging this song. Ren sits down, has a stroke of genius. He wants to write a song that was not done previous. A battle with the subconscious, Eminem did it. Played on guitar, Plan B did it. Man, you're not original, you criminal rip-off artist. The pinnacle of your success is stealing other people's material. Ren, mate, we've heard it all before. She sells seashells on the seashore. Fuck you, I don't need you, I don't need to hear this. Cause I'm fine by myself, I'm a genius. And I will be great, and I will make waves, and I'll shake up the whole world beneath it. That's right, speak your truth, your fucking God complex leaks out of you. It's refreshing to ask for you, say it instead of downplay it. Music is all about the creative process, and if people can find something to relate to within that, then that's just a bonus. Fuck you, I'ma fucking kill you, Ren. Well, fucking kill me then, let's fucking have you, Ren. I'ma do it, watch me prove it. Who are you to doubt my music? Cause I call the shots, I choose if you die. Yeah, I call the shots and so I choose who survives. I'll tie you up in knots when I lock you inside. Newsflash, I was created at the dawn of creation. I am temptation. I am the snake in Eden. I am the reason for treason, beheading all kings. I am sin, with no rhyme or reason. Son of the morning, Lucifer, Antichrist, father of lies. Mephistopheles, truth in a blender, deceitful pretender, the banished avenger, the righteous surrender. When standing in front of my solar eclipse, my name is stitched to your lips. So you see, I won't bow to the will of a mortal, feeble and normal. You wanna kill me? I'm eternal immortal. I live in every decision that catalyzes chaos, that causes division. I live inside death, the beginning of end. I am you, you are me, I am you, Ren. Hi, Ren. I've been taking some time to be distant. I've been taking some time to be still. I've been taking some time to be by myself, and I've spent half my life ill. But just as sure as the tide starts turning, just as sure as the night has dawned, just as sure as the rainfall soon runs dry when you stand in an eye of a storm. I was made to be tested and twisted. I was made to be broken and beat. I was made by his hand, it's all part of his plan that I stand on my own 2 feet. And you know me, my will is eternal. And you know me, you've met me before. Face to face with a beast, I will rise from the east and I'll settle on the ocean floor. And I go by many names also. Some people know me as hope. Some people know me as the voice that you hear when you loosen the noose on the rope. And you know how I know that I'll prosper? Cause I stand here beside you today. I have stood in the flames that cremated my brain, and I didn't once flinch your shade. So coward the man I've become when I sing from the top of my lungs that I won't retire, I'll stand in your fire, inspire that me to be strong. And when I am gone I will rise in the music that I left behind. Ferocious, persistent, immortal like you, we're a climate-ed different side.
When I was 17 years old, I shouted out into an empty room, into a blank canvas that I would defeat the forces of evil. And for the next 10 years of my life, I suffered the consequences, with autoimmunity, illness, and psychosis. As I got older, I realized there were no real winners and there were no real losers in psychological warfare, but there were victims and there were students. It wasn't David versus Goliath. It was a pendulum, eternally swaying from the dark to the light. And the more intensely that the light shone, the darker the shadow it cast. It was never really a battle for me to win. It was an eternal dance. And like a dance, the more rigid I became, the harder it got. The more I cursed my clumsy footsteps, the more I struggled. So I got older, and I learned to relax, and I learned to soften, and that dance got easier. It is this eternal dance that separates human beings from angels, from demons, from gods. And I must not forget, we must not forget, that we are human beings.
And that's our show. My thanks to Venge Dixon, Angela Gray, Mary O'Toole, and Ren for sharing their art with us. I'm hoping to interview more of the writers from Off the Map in the coming weeks. As always, Sherry Ulrich sings us into and out of our program each week. And to you, our listeners, thank you for joining us today. Stay safe out there. You've just listened to ReThreading Madness, where we dare to change how we think about mental health. We air live on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM, every Tuesday at 5 p.m. or online at coopradio.org. If you have questions or feedback about this program, or want to share your story, or have something to say to us, we want to hear from you. You can reach us by email, rethreadingmadness@coopradio.org. This is Bernadine Fox. We'll be back next week. Until then.
When I've never been further, knowing what the hell I'm gonna do, when I can't seem to find my way under or over or through, just when I'm ready to give up the fight, there you are when we turn out the lights, and it's alright.